When people hear about a new tank, they expect one thing: more firepower, a bigger gun, thicker armor. That's how tanks have been judged for decades. But modern armies aren't redesigning tanks because they lack firepower. They're redesigning them because the battlefield has changed. Today, the real threat isn't always another tank. It's being detected first, tracked, and targeted before you ever fire a shot. The Abrams M1E3 exists to solve that problem, not the one most people think. And before we break it down, I'm curious. Do you think modern tanks are becoming less powerful? Or just powerful in a very different way? If you're interested in how modern ground warfare actually works, this channel breaks it down without hype. So consider subscribing. Now let's look at why the Abrams had to change. For decades, the Abrams has been the symbol of armored dominance. Heavy, powerful, designed to win head-on fights against other tanks. From the Cold War to the Middle East, its reputation was built on one idea: overwhelming force. And for a long time, that worked. The Abrams wasn't just surviving the battlefield, and it was controlling it. But that success created an assumption that future tanks only needed to be stronger versions of the past. Thicker armor, bigger guns, more protection. The problem is, the battlefield the Abrams was designed for no longer exists. Modern threats don't always come from the front. They don't always come from another tank, and they rarely announce themselves. This is where the old logic starts to fail, and why the Abrams had to change. The biggest change on the modern battlefield isn't armor, and it isn't firepower, it's visibility. Today, armored vehicles operate under constant observation. Drones in the air, sensors on the ground, satellites overhead. Movement is tracked, patterns are analyzed, exposure is punished. In this environment, the most dangerous moment for a tank isn't when it fires, it's when it's detected. Modern threats don't need to outgun a tank. They just need to see it first. This is why traditional solutions, thicker armor, heavier protection, no longer solve the problem by themselves. More armor adds weight. More weight limits mobility. And limited mobility makes a tank easier to track, easier to predict, and harder to keep alive. This is the reality modern armies are adapting to. And it's the problem the Abrams M1E3 was designed to address. The Abrams M1E3 isn't trying to be a stronger version of the past. It's trying to be a more usable one. One of the biggest changes is weight. Not because lighter tanks are safer, but because heavier tanks are harder to keep alive. Weight limits where a tank can go, how fast it can move, and how quickly it can be supported. In modern operations, mobility isn't just about speed. It's about unpredictability. A tank that can reposition faster, deploy more easily, and rely less on massive logistics is harder to track and harder to isolate. The M1E3 reflects that shift. It's being redesigned to reduce strain on supply chains, simplify maintenance, and support modern electronics without overwhelming the platform. This isn't about sacrificing capability. It's about making sure the tank can actually stay in the fight once the battlefield starts pushing back. None of this means firepower is irrelevant. The Abrams will remain one of the most lethal tanks on the battlefield. But modern warfare no longer rewards the tank that can hit the hardest. It rewards the tank that can stay alive long enough to keep fighting. Firepower only matters if the vehicle survives long enough to use it, more than once. In today's battlefield, firing first doesn't always mean winning. Being detected first often means losing. That's why survivability now depends on things people rarely associate with tanks: awareness, integration, coordination. The Abrams M1E3 is being shaped around that reality. It's designed to operate inside a network, sharing data, receiving warnings, and reacting before threats fully materialize. And this raises an interesting question. Do modern tanks need more firepower, or do they need more time? Time to detect, time to move, time to survive. The Abrams M1E3 isn't just an upgrade to an existing tank. It represents a shift in how modern armies think about armored warfare. For decades, tanks were built around dominance. the idea that strength alone could control the battlefield. But modern warfare doesn't reward dominance in isolation. It rewards coordination, adaptation, and the ability to operate under constant pressure. The M1E3 reflects that reality. It's designed to fit into a broader system, one where tanks, infantry, drones, sensors, and support units all depend on each other. Instead of being the centerpiece, the tank becomes one part of a larger equation. And that's why this redesign matters. Not because it makes the Abrams more powerful, but because it makes it more relevant. So here's something worth thinking about. As warfare becomes more connected and more transparent, will future tanks look less like symbols of power and more like tools of survival? The Abrams M1E3 isn't designed to dominate the battlefield the way tanks once did. It's designed to survive a battlefield that no longer rewards brute force alone. Modern warfare isn't about who has the biggest gun. It's about who can operate longer, adapt faster, and stay relevant under constant pressure. That's the real story behind the M1E3. Not a tank built for firepower, but a tank built for a different kind of war. And as ground combat continues to evolve, one question remains. Are tanks becoming less powerful, or simply powerful in ways we're only beginning to understand?